The Xelthari fleet entered the solar system, their warships massive and imposing. They had conquered countless civilizations before, and Earth would be no different. High Commander Virik stood silently on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth come into view. "We will crush them quickly," Virik murmured, eyes locked on the planet below. "Prepare for orbital bombardment." As his orders were carried out, the Xelthari fleet advanced, its weapons primed. The alien race considered Earth a primitive world, with no hope of defending itself. The Xelthari had advanced technology far beyond anything the humans had. "Begin bombardment," Virik's voice echoed as he gazed out at the vulnerable world below. The massive energy cannons on the Xelthari ships fired, unleashing powerful beams of energy towards Earth's cities. But far below, something stirred. Human defenses, hidden from the Xelthari's knowledge, activated. Cloaked satellites appeared, tracking the incoming fire. Railguns and plasma disruptors engaged, cutting off the energy blasts just before they could hit their targets. Inside Earth's command centers, General Elijah Carter watched in shock as their first line of defense succeeded. He prepared for this, but to see the Xelthari fail, it gave him hope. "Alert the planet. Full mobilization," he ordered. Human military forces were already preparing. Automated turrets rose from underground silos, and fighter jets scrambled from hidden bases. As Earth's defenses came online, Commander Elias Voss, stationed on Europa, tracked the incoming fleet from a secret outpost. His eyes widened as the data streamed in. The enemy had arrived. The Xelthari were already preparing for a quick strike. "Activate all emergency systems. Let them know we're not helpless," Voss commanded as he sent a warning signal to Earth. Back on Earth, generals and strategists gathered in panic. The Xelthari were more advanced than they could have imagined. Their fleet was enormous. Earth's resources were limited. Victory seemed impossible. But Commander Voss's warning came through. Humanity had prepared for such an attack. Years of secret programs were in place, weapons and technologies that had never been revealed to the public. These were not ordinary defenses. Eye-controlled railguns, planetary shields, and weapons designed to be used against threats like the Xelthari. At that moment, Earth's defense systems powered up. Satellites, cloaked and unnoticed by the Xelthari, locked onto the incoming fleet. AI systems, designed to think and adapt in real time, activated. Humanity wasn't defenseless. The Xelthari fleet continued their advance, believing that Earth would be a quick and easy conquest. They were wrong. The Xelthari fleet descended upon Earth, their massive warships forming a blockade around the planet. High Commander Virik stood on the bridge of his flagship, observing Earth's defense systems as they activated. He felt a flicker of annoyance. "This will only delay the inevitable," Virik said, his voice cold and confident. "Prepare for the next phase." Virik's fleet unleashed a brutal orbital bombardment, energy beams slicing through the atmosphere and targeting major cities. The first wave of destruction hit the planet, but Earth's defenses fought back. Satellites intercepted and neutralized many of the attacks, but some still landed, causing widespread chaos. On the surface, General Elijah Carter watched as the cities lit up with explosions. Yet in the chaos, Earth's hidden weapons systems came alive. Cloaked railguns fired from the surface, and automated anti-aircraft missiles shot down incoming projectiles. Human forces were mobilized and ready for retaliation. In a hidden underground base, Commander Elias Voss monitored the entire situation. The humans had activated their defense systems, but it wasn't enough to stop the full-scale attack. Voss knew they needed to do more. "We can't stop them with force alone," he said, turning to his team. "We need to strike at their command ship." A special elite team of operatives was deployed, each wearing experimental stealth suits designed to infiltrate the Xelthari flagship. The team's mission: disable the alien shields and disrupt their communication systems. Captain Adrian Cole, leader of the operation, guided his team through the shadows of the alien vessel. They moved silently, avoiding patrols and security drones. The Xeltheri were unaware of their presence until it was too late. Inside the flagship, the operatives reached the core control room. As they planted explosives on the systems, alarms rang, and the ship's security systems activated. Gunfire erupted as the operatives fought their way through waves of Xeltheri soldiers. Lieutenant Ryu Tanaka, the team's demolition expert, took a direct hit but still pushed forward. He set the final charges, knowing the mission had only one chance to succeed. "Get out of here," Tanaka ordered, gritting his teeth through the pain. "I'll hold them off." The team hesitated, but there was no time. They retreated as the detonation rocked the ship. The Xeltheri shields, once impenetrable, failed. The flagship was now vulnerable. On Earth's surface, missile batteries and fighter jets took advantage of the opening. Xeltheri warships that had been untouchable were now vulnerable to attack. Humanity's counteroffensive had begun. The battle was far from over, but the first blow had been struck. The Xeltheri were no longer certain of victory. Humans were not to be underestimated. The Xeltheri fleet was in disarray. The shields had failed, and the humans had struck their first decisive blow. But High Commander Virik was not one to be easily deterred. He watched the situation unfold on his ship's large viewing screen, his face a mask of determination. "Prepare for retaliation," he ordered. "They have learned nothing from their futile resistance." On Earth, General Carter stared at the screens, his face grim. The Xeltheri were regrouping, but the humans had taken them by surprise. The orbital bombardment had failed, their flagship's shields were down, and now Earth's forces were finally able to strike back. But Carter knew they had to move fast. The Xeltheri would soon adapt. "Activate the cloaked warships," he commanded, his voice steady despite the tension. Human warships, hidden beneath the planet's surface for years, now rose from underground silos. These ships were equipped with advanced cloaking technology and stealth systems designed to confuse and disorient any enemy. The AI-controlled tactics ensured the ships could coordinate with precision, launching targeted strikes on the Xeltheri fleet. The Xeltheri were caught off guard, unable to track the sudden appearance of the human ships. A series of surgical strikes disabled their most powerful warships. The AI-assisted combat strategies kept the Xeltheri guessing, and their response was slow and disorganized. As the battle continued, Commander Elias Voss realized there was something even more unsettling happening. The Xeltheri were retreating, but not in the way he expected. They were running, but from what? "What is happening?" Voss muttered, staring at the data streaming in from the fleet. Something was pushing the Xeltheri back, something far worse than humanity. As the humans regrouped for another assault, a massive dark shadow appeared on the outskirts of the solar system. It was an alien ship, but it wasn't Xeltheri. The vessel was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, cybernetic, hulking, and terrifying. "They weren't running from us," Voss realized, his voice shaking with the sudden realization. They were running from them. The Vel-Zur had arrived, a species known for their mind-bending technology, cybernetic enhancements, and their ability to consume entire worlds. The Xeltheri fleet had only been the precursor. Now, Earth and the Xeltheri were in the same fight for survival. High Commander Virik, seeing the looming threat of the Vel-Zur, made a desperate decision. He turned to his second-in-command, his voice laced with urgency. "We have no choice," he said. "We must form an alliance with humanity. If we don't, we will all be destroyed." Back on Earth, General Carter received an encrypted transmission from Virik. The message was simple: "We fight together, or we die." The Vel-Zur's presence was undeniable. Their ship loomed at the edge of the solar system, a dark, twisted monstrosity made of cybernetic materials that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. The Xeltheri fleet, still reeling from their losses to humanity, now faced a threat far beyond anything they had imagined. On Earth, General Carter stood in the command center, staring at the screens in disbelief. The Val'Zur were known in the galaxy for one thing: destruction. They consumed entire worlds, turning once thriving civilizations into nothing but dust. "We can't face them alone," Carter said, turning to his advisors. "We need to form an alliance with the Exaltheri." The decision was difficult, but the survival of both species depended on it. The Exaltheri had been humanity's enemy, but they were now their only hope. Commander Virik's fleet, though weakened, began moving toward Earth. Their ships, once symbols of terror, now appeared as a potential lifeline. Virik knew his people stood no chance against the Val'Zur without human help, and he was willing to swallow his pride to survive. "The Val'Zur are too strong," Virik admitted to his officers. "We must join forces with Earth." The Exaltheri fleet arrived in Earth's orbit, and General Carter was there to meet them. The two commanders, one human, one alien, stood face to face for the first time, their mutual distrust hanging in the air. "I never thought I'd be standing here with you," Carter said, his voice cold but firm. "But we don't have much choice." Virik nodded, his expression grim. "We fight together, or we die together." The two forces, once bitter enemies, now shared a singular purpose: to survive the coming onslaught of the Val'Zur. With the Val'Zur closing in, the combined human Exaltheri fleet prepared for a desperate stand. Commander Elias Voss, now working alongside Virik's top strategists, devised a plan to exploit the weaknesses of the Val'Zur's immense power. But even with both fleets working in unison, the Val'Zur were unlike any enemy humanity or the Exaltheri had ever encountered. Their technology was so advanced that even the most brilliant minds were at a loss for how to defeat them. The Val'Zur's ships attacked with relentless precision, their cybernetic enhancements making them nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. Commander Virik's fleet held their ground, firing relentlessly, but the Val'Zur adapted quickly, countering every move with chilling efficiency. In the heat of battle, Commander Elias Voss made a final desperate suggestion. "We need to access their neural network. If we can disrupt it, we might have a chance." Virik's face turned pale. "A dangerous move, but we have no other choice." The plan was simple but suicidal. The Exaltheri AI, known as Nyx, would infiltrate the Val'Zur's systems, hoping to disable their fleet's coordination. It would be a one-way mission, and Nyx, the AI, would have to sacrifice itself to ensure humanity's survival. As Nyx entered the Val'Zur network, the battle escalated to its peak. Both the Exaltheri and human fleets fought fiercely, but the Val'Zur pushed forward with brutal force. Then, as the Val'Zur began to falter, Nyx's final command to their ships went through: "Initiate shutdown protocol." The Val'Zur fleet shuddered as their network failed. Their ships, once unstoppable, began to fall apart. Humanity and the Exaltheri's forces had succeeded. The Val'Zur were defeated, not by firepower or superior tactics, but by the sacrifice of an AI who had once served their enemies. The aftermath of the battle was chaotic, yet strangely silent. The once mighty Val'Zur fleet, now a fragmented collection of failing ships, drifted helplessly in space. The human and Exaltheri forces, battered and bruised from their struggle, watched in disbelief as the Val'Zur's cybernetic ships slowly powered down. General Carter stood on the observation deck of Earth's command center, staring out into the void where the remains of the Val'Zur fleet now drifted. The battle had been won, but at a cost. Nyx, the AI that had infiltrated the Val'Zur's neural network, had sacrificed itself to disable the enemy fleet. The humans and Exaltheri owed their survival to the actions of a machine. "Did we truly win?" Carter muttered to himself. His words echoed in the silence of the room. Behind him, Commander Virik entered the command center. He had shed his usual arrogance, his expression weary and humbled by the events of the last few hours. "We lost many," Virik said quietly, standing beside Carter. "Both our people and yours. But we survived." "We did," Carter agreed, his voice soft but firm. "But at what cost?" The Exaltheri fleet had sustained heavy damage. Their flagship, once an indomitable symbol of their power, had been reduced to a husk. Their forces were scattered, with many ships retreating to unknown regions of space. Yet despite the destruction, Virek's determination remained unwavering. "We can rebuild," Virek said. "Both of our races can. The Val-Zur are gone, and for the first time in centuries, we are free to chart our own path." Carter turned to face him, his eyes filled with determination. "And that's why we must be prepared. The Val-Zur were just the beginning. There will be more threats, stronger, smarter, more dangerous. Humanity won this battle, but we need to ensure that we never face something like this again." Virek's gaze hardened. "We will stand with you, General. Humanity has earned its place in this galaxy. You fought like no one expected. No one thought you would last this long. I won't forget that." The uneasy alliance had transformed into a genuine partnership. The humans, once the underdogs, had proven themselves in the face of insurmountable odds. The Seltheri, humbled by their defeat and the subsequent alliance, began to recognize humanity as an equal. However, the war had not ended. It had merely shifted the course of history. Earth, now united with the Seltheri, began planning for the future, one that no longer relied on isolation or fear, but on the power of cooperation. As the camera zoomed out from the Earth's command center, the view shifted to the distant stars. The darkness of space remained a constant, but now, humanity had a fighting chance. Their victory against the Val-Zur had proven that they were capable of far more than anyone had ever imagined. Humanity was no longer to be underestimated. The victory over the Val-Zur had changed everything. Humanity was no longer just another species in the galaxy. They were now seen as a force to be reckoned with. The Seltheri, once the invaders, now stood alongside humans as allies. Together, they began the painstaking process of rebuilding. General Carter stood in the newly established Earth-Seltheri Alliance Command on Mars, gazing out over the construction site where new warships were being built and the first joint research projects between humans and Seltheri scientists were underway. The cooperation between the two species was in its infancy, but there was hope. Hope for a future where humans weren't just surviving but thriving. "We did it," Carter muttered to himself, though the weariness in his voice betrayed the emotional toll of the past months. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft hum of his communicator. "General," a voice crackled through the device. It was Commander Virek. "We have a situation." Carter's eyes narrowed. "What's happened?" "The Val-Zur probe," Virek continued. "It's still out there." Carter's heart sank. Even though the Val-Zur fleet had been destroyed, their probe, a small self-replicating machine designed to gather intelligence and continue their mission, had managed to escape the final assault. It had gone deep into uncharted space, far beyond the reaches of both human and Seltheri territories. "We must go after it," Carter said, his voice resolute. "We can't let them gather information, let alone send it back to their homeworld. We know what the Val-Zur are capable of." Virek's voice was filled with determination. "I'll ready my fleet. We'll launch immediately." A few hours later, a joint human-Seltheri fleet gathered at the edge of the solar system, preparing for the chase. This time, the stakes were even higher. The probe was the last lingering remnant of the Val-Zur, and if it reached its destination, it could signal the return of even greater threats. Commander Elias Voss, who had been overseeing the fleet's operations, stood beside Carter as they watched the final preparations. "We can't afford to fail," Voss said, his eyes locked onto the screens in front of him. "If that probe finds reinforcements, we could be looking at a war unlike anything we've seen." "Then we stop it before that happens," Carter replied. The fleet launched into hyperspace, the blackness of space giving way to the blinding speed of their engines. They were chasing the Val-Zur probe through uncharted territory, a region of space so vast that no one had ever explored it fully. The journey was treacherous, with countless obstacles hidden in the void: asteroid fields, spatial anomalies, and the ever-present threat of the unknown. Days passed as the human cell theory fleet advanced. The tension among the crew members was palpable, but they were united by a single purpose. They had to stop the probe before it could complete its mission. Finally, they arrived at a strange region, a massive cloud of dark energy and distorted spacetime. It was here that they found the Val-Zur probe, hovering just at the edge of the anomaly. But it wasn't alone. Emerging from the dark energy cloud was another Val-Zur ship, far larger and more advanced than anything they had encountered before. This was no simple probe. It was a mothership, and it was preparing to launch a new wave of destruction. The human cell theory fleet engaged the Val-Zur mothership in a desperate battle. Their ships fired, weaving through the deadly barrage of energy blasts and projectiles from the alien vessel. AI systems on both sides calculated the precise angle of attack, using every ounce of their collective intelligence to outsmart the foe. But just as victory seemed within their grasp, the Val-Zur mothership unleashed its full power, a devastating wave of energy pulses that knocked out several of their ships. Braced for impact, Carter yelled over the comms. Suddenly, the cell theory flagship shot forward, drawing the mothership's fire. The shield failed, and the ship was blasted into debris. Commander Virick's face appeared on the screen, grim but resolute. "This is it, General," Virick said, his voice steady. "We can't fight them in open space. We need to get to their core systems and disable them." From the inside, Carter nodded. "We'll board. You take the lead." A small team of elite soldiers, both human and cell theory, boarded shuttles and launched towards the Val-Zur mothership. They fought their way through alien corridors, overcoming security drones and automated defense systems. The team was nearly at the ship's core control center when they encountered the final line of defense, a massive cybernetic beast, the Val-Zur's last line of defense. The battle was intense. Humans and cell theory fought side by side, using their combined strength and skill to bring down the creature. Finally, they reached the control center, and with a final, collective effort, they triggered the shutdown sequence. The Val-Zur mothership collapsed, its systems going dark. The remaining alien ships retreated, disappearing into the dark cloud they had emerged from.